Hey guys, welcome to Canadian Cutting Edge. Today we're taking a look at these knives. This is the Bush series of knives designed by Good Knife Co. Chad Rector is the designer's name and made by David Murray Custom, designed in the United States of America and built partly in the USA, mostly in Canada. The blanks are cut out and heat treated in USA by Jared Todd, and the rest of the work is done in Ontario, Canada. You've seen the unboxing for these, hopefully, and if you haven't, check that video out. I'll put a link right there right now. And otherwise, stay tuned. The review's coming right now. As is common on handmade knives, these are each going to be slightly different in every way possible. And if you order some for yourself, they're going to be in very tiny ways unique because they're hand produced. The blade thickness of each of these, well, I'm sure they started off with the same steel for all of them, but it's slightly off, minuscule amounts. The blade depth this way, on the unboxing, I thought these two were the same thickness. Well, of course, they're not the same depth, I should say. They're not the same depth because each one's an individual. They were put over the belt sander and just a tiny bit difference in depth from one to the other. That's what you're going to get. So if you're prepared for that, let's keep going. One of the first things you're going to notice on these is it's the same pattern. We've got the same basic pattern. Well, from the handle on, we've got one depth, and then it goes up a step, about 1/8 of an inch deeper, and then it stays flat across the top. So that's the same on all of them. The handle is the same general shape on the two smaller ones, the Bush Camp, that's one word, the Bush Brute. They're very much the same style, handle and everything. But here on the Bush Eddy, we've got a handle. It comes, you can see it clearly on this pattern that's on here. This is not quite G10. The black is actually a very firm rubber. It just helps a little bit with grip, more than just plain straight G10 layers would. But you can see it's a bit bigger here, and it comes thinner here, and wider, and then thinner. So it comes in a little bit here, and in a fair bit back here, and that helps it to be very comfortable in hand. Your small finger just doesn't have quite as much grip, so it needs to come in a bit, but then you've got a bit wider guard right there. So you can hold this thing really well. And I didn't swing against like wood in a chopping manner very much. Well, it technically is wood. It's thin, light branches. I just wanted to see how much, if my hand got fatigued because of the grip or stuff like that. And no, this grip is very good for an extended time period of just whacking away at shrubbery and stuff. I did test it against wood a little bit, some light chopping on soft wood. It's not, if you want to do hard chopping, get a hatchet, get an axe, so that kind of stuff. This actually worked quite well. Yeah, let's finish talking about this one first. It's, of course, the largest one. Let's take a look at the dimensions right now. What would I change on this one if I could? I think I would like a little more forward weight, but I doubt I would use this kind of knife for extended chopping anyways, so it depends. If I wanted a chopper, this is more like a machete. That's why they chose the name Bush Eddy. And it's a cross between a bushcraft knife and a machete. And actually, they've done a really good job. Traditional machetes are actually fairly thin and light, but this is a little bit thicker than a lot of machetes. So yeah, it's really done a good compromise between that. If it would have been called the Bush Hopper, then it would be like a bush knife chopper. So, maybe with the namesake telling you exactly what kind of knife it is, probably I wouldn't change more weight up there because it really isn't a chopper kind of knife. You certainly could use it that way a little bit though. I took all these knives out and I did a little bit of videotaping of some of the use of it that I did for woodworking. Let's show you that. Okay, so here we go. It's really close to freezing point. That's why I'm wearing my gloves. Let's start testing this knife. First, I'll do a little batoning. I never baton a huge board in half. Take off little slivers. You know, if I was in a life and death situation, I would certainly, and if I only had a knife, I'd certainly only take off slivers because I wouldn't want to break my knife, you know, instead of making huge honking cuts and maybe breaking the knife. So let's get started. Yeah, that convex grind just works. It just, you can baton no problem. That's the little guy. And the brute. No problem at all. That was a tough piece of wood. And so this guy, there's no difference. It's the same steel, it's the same profile, it's the same everything. But I know somebody's going to ask, just fine. No problem at all. And they've all got the same grind. They've got the same convex edge here. And they just work. This big one might be a little harder to control. I'll try a little closer to my hand. I am not a good feather stick maker. It's not the knife's fault that I keep cutting through. It's just the nature of how unskilled I am on doing this, even though I've done it hundreds of times. And there's an element of the piece of wood to play. As you can see, that works just fine. Oh. Let's try the brute. This piece of wood's a little easier to control. Works great. Feather sticks, not a problem. How about doing bigger chunks? If you get a good grip, you can do big things, just going through a lot of wood instead of just doing something thin. And a lot of that has to do with the strength of the individual. Let's try it with my right hand. Try it with something a little bit bigger here. So yeah, it wants to just cut in there. No problem at all. And let's do a little notch here. It's easy to use this knife in a way that good control, easy to control it, cuts well. For an outdoors knife, I really do like a bit of a convex grind there. It's just working. No problem. Easy peasy. And look at that. You can use either hand, and it just works. If you're ambidextrous. All right, I think I've shown you enough. I don't need to show you an awful lot. It just cuts well. Let's go back inside. Okay, so we've looked at this guy. How about the small one? This is the Bush Camp, and I agree with the name. This is a good camp knife. This would be a good knife to carry. It can do a lot of different tasks very well. It's comfortable in hand. And the blade shape is very useful. It's not just like what a Scandi grind knife can do. Scandi grinds are good, but they are a little bit limited on what they can do well. This could do bushcraft type work, or it does good camp kitchen type work, and anything in between. It's got a nice long belly here. You could use it to skin an animal if you needed to. It's a well-made knife, well-designed, comfortable in hand. This one's got the thinnest guard. Let's talk about the sizes of this guy right now. So it's light, comfortable, easy to use, and it cuts well. It stays secure in the hand with the grip, seeing how it comes deeper in the handle as you go back, and it stays one thickness along the length of it. Well, of course, it gets a little thinner right here, but very comfortable knife. I like this guy quite a lot. And then this guy. This is a good size knife. I like this one. In a long-term camping scenario, the knives that I'd like to have along with me, if I could only have two, it would be these two. Probably leave this guy at home. Just my personal taste. Somebody else might want to take, these two or these two. Who knows? Just my personal, the way I do camping and stuff. And of course, I do camping or hiking or stuff. I don't do a lot of hiking because of my knees. When I go out, I don't really need a really big knife. If you need one, get it. But these guys are nice. The Bush Brute, and it really is what they claim it to be. It's a brute of a knife. You've got extra depth this way, so you got extra weight. It's a good length to use for just about anything. It's not too long to be unwieldy. It's not too heavy to be a bother. It's a good knife for my hand size. Men's large and extra large are going to find these two very comfortable. But I have extra large hands as well, and I still found this little guy comfortable too. But this guy's going to be comfortable for even for guys with small hands. I think men small. It's a nice knife. This guy's G10 completely. This guy's also got the bit of rubber compound in here. The prices for these, well, they've got a base price. And the base price is with a G10 only handle. And that's the base price. And then the prices can go up from there. If you want this sort of G10 with this rubber, that's a bit more money. They've also got wood. They've also got micarta. And you can get that for any one of the handles, your choice. You make it the way you want it. And then the sheaths. Let's talk about those now. The sheaths, for the most part, I'm quite happy with them. They're large enough. They're made so they can fit with Tech Lock. This isn't a Tech Lock one. This is a Chinese brand, but the alignment of the holes is the same. This one's a Dots brand or whatever. And it lines up. You can align it with the higher holes or the lower holes. All of them, they're spaced properly. So that's a good thing. So no problem for that idea. Or you could use all kinds of other stuff. You could use the Ulti-Clip, whatever you have. The blades are designed, the sheaths are designed to slide in right fine. It's technically not Kydex. This material is one step up from Kydex. What's the brand name? I forgot. It's on the screen what the brand name of this material is. These hold quite well. They're a little bit, there's movement in there. But the retention, it holds on quite well. It's not going to fall out easily. You could carry this thing upside down and it's not going to fall out. And there's nothing here to snag on anything either. So that's a good thing. The small one and the Bush Camp and the Bush Brute are both very well done. It holds on nice and tight. It's not coming out. But this guy here, if you take a look at that, it's flaring out a little bit more on the end here than these are. These are flat. So this one, I think it just needed to be reshaped or something. Maybe they intended to make it this way. On this one, you can also see that there's a little bit of scuffing on the side of the blade here. It's a snug fit along the blade, but just not quite a snug fit in that section there. These other ones, you know, there's no scuff marks on the sides of the blade that I could, yeah, they're a tiny bit on this one right here. But that's sort of par for the course for what you get when you don't have machines making them exactly specifically perfect every time. You know, this is handmade. Everything here you see is handmade, which is quite good. So what else do you see that's missing? Well, there's no lanyard holes. Now, technically, they could put lanyard holes in. It would cost extra. It would delay the manufacturing time, I believe. I don't know for sure. You'd have to call the guys. But the person to contact if you want to buy one of these is Chad at Good Knife Co. In the United States. These are nicely made. We've got, I didn't mention before, this black section in here. That is a paper micarta. The liners on these two. The smallest one is just G10 all the way along. They look cool. They feel good. I think they're well made. They have got, of course, the hands of a workman on them. You can see that, you know, they've been worked by a human being and not a machine. You know, in some spots, there's really minor grind lines that you can see just a tiny hint of. But for the most part, you know, they've been cleaned up very well. And they feel good in the hand. If you've got smaller hands, you can probably request that the handles be made thinner. One other thing that I didn't mention, that I did mention in the unboxing, is the bushetti is at an angle. If you make this line go straight back, then the angle in here, this comes down at a 5-degree angle. Just a little bit more for a little bit of advantage when you go to chop things. I think it'd probably be better closer to 10 or 15 degrees. That's just a personal taste thing. But this is done quite well. If you like what you see, then go ahead and buy one or two, or maybe even 3. Thank you so much for watching this video on these knives, the Bush series, the Bush Camp, the Bush Brute, and the Bushetti. Thanks for liking, sharing, commenting, and subscribing. And remember, friends, always cut towards your chum, not your thumb.